Hello and welcome to this wonderful, exciting webinar that is being hosted by NSD Car. And we are so excited to be joining us, to be pulling everybody together to talk about how we can leverage Zoom for real estate agents and professionals. So my name is Julie Holmes. As I said, I am a professional speaker and presenter. I'm also an inventor. And my area of expertise is around tech and communication. So it's how do we leverage technology to communicate and connect more effectively, particularly in sales and marketing. I am also a realtor tech coach, which means I work with real estate professionals and I work with real estate organizations, providing expertise and advice and mentorship around how people can leverage technology more effectively in that industry. So some of the ways that I work with realtors is I help them leverage technology to get leads more effectively so that they can track engagement on their marketing efforts, and so they can track engagement from their buyers. Who's looking? When are they looking? How long are they looking for? And how they can use tech to connect with a variety of buyers, young, old, in between, and how they can use tech to wow their clients. There's just this great rule of thumb when it comes to sales that if you want to be the very best at sales, do the things that will knock their socks off. And tech is the easiest way that we can do that for our buyers. So we also want to be able to leverage video for sales. In fact, I'm dying to know in the chat box right now, tell me if you're using video and how. So are you currently using video in your real estate business, and how are you using it? I also talk about how to leverage sales technique and tech in order to scale sales processes. How do I reach more prospects and service more people? And what about digital marketing? How do we leverage digital marketing and social media to stay better connected and to get in front of our buyers? Because I'm sure everyone knows the market is not the same now. Well, the market's not the same now as it was 2 months ago, but it's also not the same now as it was 2 years ago, or especially 10 years ago. And finally, how do we automate follow-up so that I can make sure that my clients never feel forgotten? Because that is one of the most valuable things that we can do, is to be where we need to be when the buyer is ready to buy. So, very good. So I see a couple of messages. People are saying that they are using video messages through text. That's very good. We can talk a little bit about that as well. Not using video, tech challenged. I work with older clients. They might be tech challenged as well. And in fact, here's a little tip. If you work with older clients, they will love it if you start doing more video, because that is the easiest way for them to consume information. And we're going to talk about some of that. Virtual open house, that's great. That's awesome. Some people aren't using video or technology really all that much right now. So there's a lot that we can cover. So here's our next question. Our next question is, do you think that you should be using video, or particularly in this case, Zoom, with your clients? So everybody chime in really quickly. Using that chat box, let's hear all about it. Do you think that you should be using Zoom or video with your clients? So, we can go with an absolutely, it depends, sometimes just a big fat yes. We have a lot of exclamation marks, a definitely from Jessica, how right you are, and from Jade, lots of yeses. So we have a lot of yeses that we should be using video. And I love that there are people like Carlin who are working with people to get more into video. Video is going to be one of the most spectacular tools that you have at your disposal, and Zoom is just a way to take that video and make it into a conversation. So we're going to talk a little bit more about that as we go. Now, here's our plan, because I think it's really important that we set out what exactly it is that we're hoping to accomplish during this program, and more importantly, what you can expect from it. So first of all, I'm going to talk a little bit about why Zoom. And a lot of the messages I'm going to talk about Zoom are going to be relevant across the board when it comes to video. The second thing that we're going to talk about is some specific features and functions within Zoom. And finally, a few tips and tricks about how to be Zoomazing, so that you can be really spectacular. Now, this program is specifically about Zoom, although some of the content that I'll cover will extend into what you should be doing generally for video. I do have separate programs around video and how do we leverage video as realtors. So happy to talk to anybody about that. Now, throughout the course of this program, a couple other things are going to happen. I am going to be giving you some QR codes. Now, just out of curiosity, is there anybody in here who go ahead and put in there on your webinar chat, QR code, yes or no? Do you know how to QR code? So are you a QR code user? And if not, I'll make sure that you know how. But QR codes are, again, a great tool to use, especially right now. Oh, Monica's all in. That's awesome. We have quite a few people who have not leveraged QR codes, and I can't wait to tell you more about those. So these are all just lots of little tech tools and tips and strategies that I work with people on. So I'm going to give you some QR codes. It's going to be an easy way for you to get access to some of the content and some of the bonus material. Now, some of you love to take notes, and I strongly encourage you to do so. However, please know that at the end of this, I'm going to give you an opportunity to access a link and go and specify what bonus content you want from this. So I have way more content than I can cover in the short period of time that we have together. So I try to put together some great add-ons that you can go and get for free, that you can go and access. So tips, tricks, some people want to join my tip mailing list, all kinds of things. So you'll get a chance to do that. And one of the options will be to download the slides. So as we keep going, just know that that's coming up at the end. At any point, if you have a question, put it into your webinar chat or put it into the Q&A panel. So what I'd love to do is I'd love to say that our participant chat dialogue, that's where we're going to have a conversation. And if you have a question, please put it in the Q&A box. And that will help me to differentiate between whether we're chatting or whether we're actually having a question that needs to be answered. So let's talk about the QR code. So I put a QR code here on the screen. Now, you are likely either have an Android phone or you have an iPhone. If you have an iPhone, all you have to do is to take your iPhone and open up your camera app. Don't do anything. Just open your camera app and just point it at the QR code that you see on your screen. You don't have to press anything. You don't have to click any buttons. Just point it. And then a little dialogue will pop up at the top of your phone that will launch whatever the QR code says that you're going to launch. Now, if you have an Android phone doesn't come with a built-in QR code reader. So you need to go and download a QR code app. I can certainly recommend one, and I will put that in our follow-up bonus content if you need that. But in the meantime, I've also included just a little web link down here that you can do. So I've talked for a couple seconds now. The question is, where does this QR code test go to? Can anybody find it? Very good. It's taken you to LinkedIn, and it's taken you to my LinkedIn profile. So, while you're there, you might as well connect with me. And then we're actually going to be able to leverage that, and we can stay in touch, which is fabulous. So that's how we QR code. So a QR code can take you to lots of different places. It can take you to a shortcut to a meeting. It can take you to an application. It can take you all kinds of places. So what we're going to talk about first is why Zoom. Now, this is probably the most important section. There are tons of videos out there, and you can certainly go and, even just go to the Zoom help and go to, their documentation and find all kinds of cool ways to use Zoom. But what I really wanted to focus on initially was why Zoom is such a powerful tool for you in what you do. And then Carlin, to come back to your question, how does the QR take you to your LinkedIn? I'm assuming that it did take you to my LinkedIn. And the question is, are you asking how to get it to take it to your LinkedIn? In which case I can, nope. I totally didn't get that question right, apparently. Yours. Did it go to my LinkedIn for you, Carlin? No. Okay, well, we'll come back and I'll check with you on that in a little bit. So let me keep going and I'll come back on that one. Okay, and why Zoom? So let's talk about this. Zoom is an amazing video meeting platform. Now, it can be used for webinars like what we're doing right now. And with the webinar, it's very much kind of a one-sided conversation, although we certainly try to keep the interaction going as much as possible. Thank you all for participating in the chat. And the other side of this is that it can also be used for meetings and just really that kind of one-to-one dialogue. I want you to imagine that Zoom is basically a virtual office space for you. That's certainly how I treat it. So while where I used to go and spend, hey, let's meet up and I'll come to your office or you come to mine, I now tell people, listen, let's just meet in my virtual office. And people join me on my Zoom meetings and I conduct all the same amount of work that I used to do. In fact, I get a lot more done without having to haul myself out of the house or out of my office. And frankly, right now, that's about the biggest choice that we have. So one of the reasons that people tend to hesitate when it comes to Zoom or other forms of video is that people aren't very comfortable on video. They just, like, a great question for you. How many of you love to be on video? You love seeing yourself on film. Now, there's going to be a few people I know who love to see themselves on video. But how many of you cringe a little bit? You can use our raised hands. Like, raise your hand if you do not love video. If you do not love to see yourself on video, raise your hand. Oh, I wish you all could see this right now. It is almost every single hand up. Brilliant. But the whole thing about video, and especially things like using Zoom, is that we don't do it for us. We aren't on video so that we can look at ourselves. We are on video because it is one of the most powerful ways that we can connect and communicate with the people that we serve, with our clients, with our buyers, with our partners. That is why we have to go on video. So if you're hesitant and uncomfortable with the prospect of being on video or even being on a web conference call, and you are one of those people who doesn't share your camera, knock it off. This isn't about you. It's about them. And it's so important that we make sure that we leverage these technology tools in order to give the best possible experience to the people that we do business with. And in fact, let me tell you why it matters so much. So for messages that matter, and this is one of those things, like when I speak at big conferences and conventions, one of the key messages I talk about is how do we leverage technology to connect effectively? And there are 3 primary areas that make messages that connect and resonate. Now, you've seen it, and in fact, you may even be guilty of it, of being one of those people that is heads down in their phone all the time. And sometimes we can't help but wonder, what is the big appeal? Like, why is everybody face down all the time on their phones? And some of us would assume that it might be, we're just lazy. We're too lazy to go out and meet people in real life anymore. But it isn't that technology is failing us. It's that technology is giving us what we've always wanted, but could never really get before. For example, the 3 things that make messages that matter are, first, the dimensionality. The more robust a communication is, the more engaging it is. Like, how many of you have gotten excited just getting an email? A flat, 2-dimensional, black and white email is pretty hard to get excited about. But turn that around and you're in a movie theater with surround sound and graphics, or you're in the live theater and you're watching a production of Hamilton, whatever it is, you are suddenly engrossed. And that is that dimensionality. How many different ways am I impacting or engaging someone? The second one is immediacy, the ability for us to have dialogue. Again, if I think about an email message, I'm sending an email message and then it's sent, it's done. Like, it could be from yesterday or the week before. And the challenge is that the people are more engaged when it is interactive, when it's timely, when they're immersed. I could sit here and just talk to myself, but I love that, Debbie, I'm worried about your mother and the fact that she said your baby pictures are ugly. Like, Debbie, that is sad. But the fact that not only are we having interaction, because the third dimension is relevance. Personalized, curated, human. The world is changing right now before your very eyes. And I promise you, it is not going to be back to the same way of doing business again when all of this COVID is over. So this is your big chance to master these technology skills and tools so that you can come out of this pandemic crisis better prepared and better to sell and serve your clients. Now, that personalization and relevance, has anybody noticed how I've been calling people out by name? And that's because as soon as you hear your name or as soon as you feel like you're part of the conversation, it changes the way you feel about it. And that's what Zoom allows us to do. So that when we intersect that medium point right there between dimensionality and immediacy and relevance, that's where we get great communication. And we can do that with Zoom, which is fantastic. So let's talk about 4 reasons why you should Zoom. The first is trust. There's actually a communication study that was done years ago that talked about the power of being seen. And it was called mere exposure. The mere exposure effect says that just by seeing someone, even if you have no interaction with them, just by physically seeing them, you are more likely to trust them. Now, we're in a trust-based business, right? We're not talking about little tiny purchases here or there. We're talking about life-changing decisions that people make through your advice and through your support. And that means trust is critical. So trust is one of the reasons why we need to get ourselves on Zoom and have more video interactions with our clients and our prospects. The second is connection. The more that you see me like this is obviously going to create a bigger connection for you than if I was just to send you an email with a list of 10 things you should do on Zoom. So we know that we need that connection to develop loyalty with our clients. And once we have their loyalty, then we're going to get their referrals. And that is super valuable in our industry, right? Finally, authenticity. Or not finally, but authenticity is the next one. Now, this is what's really changing right now. You are seeing people in places and in ways that you never expected to see them before. Now, for some of us, that's okay. And for others, we've seen some things that we didn't want to see on a Zoom meeting. We've seen bras hanging from a closet door, we've seen, naked children and topless husbands walking by and all kinds of things. But what is happening is that we are seeing people the way they really are. And people aren't going to want to go back to putting up that business polished facade anymore. So get ready for that authentic experience when you connect with them that way. Then we have engagement. And engagement is about how do I keep people engaged and how do I keep them interacting with me? There are thousands and thousands of people in this industry. How are you going to stand out? And not only how are you going to stand out, but how are you going to stay connected? And using video in Zoom is one of the most powerful tools at your disposal to make that happen. Now, here's some examples of how you can use Zoom in your real estate profession. First of all, you can do individual video tours. Somebody actually was just mentioning that on the chat, which is brilliant. You can also do public listing tours. Now, you can just create a video for that, but I want you to really challenge yourself to think, should you be in those home tours? Now, I want you to imagine that there's almost 2 types of home tours that you can deliver. One is a marketing polished home tour, right? It's an automated series of photos and we're creating basically an animated slideshow. That is the most common form of video tour that we see today in the real estate market. However, imagine for a second that you weren't doing that, or maybe you did that and you actually did a personal tour where you looked in the camera and you talked about this home or you talked about this property and you talked about why this property was a great investment, and you talked about the amazing features of this property, and you connected with those potential buyers with your eye contact, with your voice, and with your engagement. Now all of a sudden you aren't just selling that house, you are selling yourself as well, and that is powerful. You could be recording video blogs. You are experts in your industry. How are you creating content right now to really get that expertise out there so that you're benefiting from all of the people who are out there looking online right now? You can use Zoom to review paperwork instead of sending files over and marking things up and having long conversations. You can say, let's go through the purchase contract together. Let's review your HUD. Let's see what it has to say. And in that way, you are creating an experience where you are truly supporting your buyer all along the journey, or your seller. I can also connect distant buyers. I have on more than one occasion purchased properties where my husband and I were nowhere near each other. because my husband's British. And so, like I was buying property while he was still living in England. And, I routinely am the one who picks and buys our properties. And so I use Zoom all the time to get him on the line so that I can give him a video tour and to get the estate agent on the line and all of that. You can also use Zoom to do recording and transcribing. How can you take something like Zoom and use it to create and deliver a more exceptional sales experience? What you want to do is you want to wow your clients. And when you wow them, they are going to tell other people about how you wowed them. And I don't know about you, but referrals are the lifeblood of my business. And so, what can you do to help generate those referrals? You can also use Zoom to really get to know your clients. I am fascinated by how much people don't tell me about what they're looking for, but I can see it around them. So they might not tell me that they want a quiet room where they can do their work, but imagine that you were having a video call with somebody and they just had kids and dogs and a parrot screaming past as they, while they're on the call. And you might say, maybe you'd like a quiet workspace too in your next purchase. And they'd be like, yes, that is exactly what I need. You can also use it to do recording. So you can do things like facilitating team chats and training. You can deliver more personal value with less time. Imagine how much you could serve your clients if you didn't constantly have to wait to meet them in person. Even just the drive time alone impacts your ability to serve more people. So how do you deliver still a quality personal experience, but how can you do it without you physically having to traipse all over town to make that happen? And finally, this is about standing out as the very best professional that you can be. This is not a time to sit back and hope that your business survives. This is a time to think about how do you come out of this stronger, smarter, faster, and better at delivering the value that you and your clients deserve. So, what do you think? Do some of these seem like things that you should be doing? Of all the items listed on here, what are one or two things that you're like, I should get on this right now? This is something I should definitely be doing. So take a moment into the chat box and pick one or two items and type in, here's what I want to be doing right now. This is how I'm going to start leveraging video and Zoom. Let's see what kind of answers we get back in our chat panel. Public listing tours, perfect. And I hope that when you do that, Debbie, that you'll be thinking about those public listing tours and being the face of that tour. Certainly we can do, just recorded videos, but take that one step farther in being the face of that property. Excellent. Getting to know your client. That's a super powerful one. Thank you, Elaine. Good for video tours, Valerie. That's brilliant. Reviewing paperwork, to Kelly's point, reviewing paperwork is one of those things that people don't leverage Zoom for nearly as much as they should. And I want you to imagine for a second how your buyers and sellers are feeling when they get a big contract and you have to talk them through it. Okay, now turn to page 3 and I want you to go to the 3rd paragraph and all of that. And I love, Monica, that you are keen to stand out as the very best agent. And well done, Allison. We're going to help you facilitate some trainings. Okay, we're going to keep going. I hope that I have persuaded you that you need to be getting yourself on video and getting yourself on Zoom. So we've already talked about some of the ways that you're using video in Zoom today, earlier on. So we're going to go ahead and skip this question. And now we're going to start to talk about how to Zoom. So there are different kinds of Zoom meetings that you can use. There is the free one, which is great for kind of one-to-one meetings. But listen, I want to tell you that my opinion, and in my experience, Zoom and any platform like it is an investment in your business. This is not a time to be using a free meeting, right? If you want to come across as a professional that has all the right tools in your kit bag, this should be one of the tools that you're investing in. Now, at a minimum, I would encourage you to really be looking at Pro. But if you can, I would certainly encourage you to go to business. And I'm going to explain why in just a minute when I show you the recording capability. But I also want you to just think about that business has company branding on it, and that's quite powerful. So these are your different plans. It's a small investment. If you think about how much this is going to save you in taking your clients out to lunch, just saying, right? It's already paid for itself. If you just do a Zoom meeting instead of taking them out to lunch one time, like it's going to be so much better. But a couple cups of coffee and you've paid for your Zoom for the month. Okay, so let's talk about Zoom meeting options. Now we're going to be focusing on meetings because that's my anticipation of how you will primarily be using Zoom. And, okay, Allison, I will make sure that I address Zoom bombing and security. Yes. Certain things should not be covered in a Zoom meeting. Allison, I want to ask you to give me a little bit more detail about what you mean when you say certain things should not be covered in a Zoom meeting. Now, Zoom, by the way, does not replace your personal interactions, but it enhances those personal interactions. So when you're doing a Zoom meeting, it looks something like this. Down at the bottom, you have a series of options going across the bottom of your screen, and I want to talk you through what some of those options look like. So first of all, the very most important thing I want you all to meet is the mute button in the bottom left-hand corner. Now, when you're not talking, you should be muted. And here's a cool, easy trick for you. When you're in a Zoom meeting and you are muted, and that is your active screen, meaning you aren't multitasking and off reading emails over to the left or the right, then when you press your spacebar, that will temporarily unmute you. Now, that's just a great way so that you can very easily unmute, say what you need to say, let go of your spacebar, and then you're back to being muted again, which is quite handy. But most importantly is the little up arrow directly to the right of that mute button, that microphone button. And what that does is it allows you to choose which microphone to use. We can tolerate a lot of bad video, but we cannot tolerate bad audio. So please be very conscious that you're working with a decent microphone. Then we go into security. So security is the next one. There's a couple of different options that have come up. There's all kinds of clever things that Zoom have added, especially recently, to address Zoom bombing. So let's talk about a few of them. Now, for a start, and you will have experienced this a little bit with a webinar, but even in a meeting, I can set up my meeting so that I have a waiting room. And that waiting room means that nobody gets into my meeting unless I personally admit them. So I get a little on my meeting panel registrants. I can see, oh, here's all the people that are waiting to join my meeting room. The other benefit with a meeting room or a waiting room is that with that waiting room, I can put branding and I can put a welcome message on there as well. So that's one thing that we can do for security is we can leverage waiting room capability. The second thing that we can do is we can put passwords on our meetings so we can let people know that there's a specific password that we use for all of our meetings or for specific meetings. There's also a new feature that's just come out from Zoom called Lock Meeting. And when you lock the meeting, so once you've started your Zoom meeting, down at the bottom is an option to lock that meeting within security. And when you click on Lock the Meeting, it means that nobody else can join that meeting, whether they have the password or the code or not. You've basically locked the door. So those are just a few of the different security measures that are in place. Okay, so a couple other things. Oh, absolutely, Allison. So Allison is pointing out that some of the things that should not be covered in a Zoom meeting are things like RPA, wiring of funds, should not be done over Zoom, and you should not be disclosing private info. Absolutely true. Absolutely true. Thank you so much for reminding everyone of that, Allison. I completely and utterly agree. Okay, so then we come over here to where we have the participant section down on the bottom. That participant section is where I can see where everybody is. This is where you're going to want to open the participant dialog when somebody keeps talking, but you can't hear them. And that's because they're muted. And so if you click on participants, you'll see the participant dialog and you can see if they're muted there. Then we've got chat, which you're all experiencing now, even though we're in a webinar. And the sharing of the screen. Now, sharing of the screen is probably the number one reason to use Zoom as opposed to, say, FaceTime, for example. Well, okay, it's one of two good reasons to use Zoom. So sharing your screen is where I can take something like a contract and I want to share that and make that available. And I actually want to do annotations on the screen while we're reviewing it. How cool would that be for your clients? So that share screen, by default, people tend to want to go in there and just share their whole desktop. That's too much. So instead, what you really want to do is go in there and pick a specific app to share. You can also do things like polling, and the recording is one of my favorite features and one of the most valuable features of Zoom. And that's why I recommend going up to the business membership if you can. So if I was looking at something like a Zoom recording has the ability to not only record, but also to transcribe your meetings as well. So when you go back and review something that has been recorded, I can see a complete dialogue and transcript of everything that was said during that conversation, and I can jump to different parts of the conversation as well. That's massively valuable if you want to record a conversation that you've had with your client and have your assistant organize those notes into some type of collateral for them. Or if you want to just send it back to your client because you went through the pros and cons of a particular property or a particular approach to selling and you want to give them that record of your conversation. That's powerful stuff. So I think Allison's adding another thing here. Let's make sure we cover this. Absolutely. Yeah. If you are accustomed to using Zoom meetings or Zoom webinars, great. You can manage everything. Allison makes a great point that if you are not very Zoom savvy or very high tech on Zoom, you might want to have somebody else who's joined the Zoom meeting for you and is helping you to monitor your chats and check your Q&A and all of that as well. Okay, so how to be Zoom-mazing. Here's a couple of quick tips to get you going. First, how comfortable are you on camera? Like we've already established, most people raise their hand and we're like, what? No, I don't want to be on the camera. That's terrifying. So let me give you a few things that you can do to make that a little less painful. First of all, it's important that we give a great Zoom experience. Now, here's the quick and easy solution in terms of looking better on camera. Now, you can all see me right here. Everything is great. But if I was to come in, this is how most people appear on their Zoom. Look familiar? Anybody experience something that looks like this? Right? So here's the first tip is to get your camera up. Get it up so that it is just at your eyesight or a little bit above. That is perfect. So that's one thing. From a lighting perspective, the best lighting you're probably ever going to get is to face a window. So really easy. You can give everybody a better experience if you're just facing a window, not putting it behind you. And if you want to make sure that you're looking people in the eye, and this is one of the most difficult skills to learn, but once you learn it, it's worth its weight in gold. And that is that I am tempted to look at you on the screen. But when I look at you on the screen, that's not very engaging for you. So remember that if you want to look your clients in the eye, that means looking in your camera lens because that is their eye. And if you're not sure or comfortable with how to do that and you want to get some practice on that, then do what I do. Just tape a picture of something or somebody that you love or adore or find incredibly fascinating and just tape it directly above your camera. And that'll help you to remember, even if it's just a big arrow that says, look here, that'll help you to remember that you need to be looking in the lens instead of at the screen. Got it? And then finally, I already mentioned that sound is incredibly important. People can tolerate a lot of bad video, but what they can't tolerate is not being able to hear you or understand you, or being so overwhelmed with background noise that they can't get good value from it. So make sure that you have a microphone. Most built-in microphones are not good enough. Okay, so here's a few links and tools. So get out your phones. We're going to do some QR coding. Love a good QR code. We're going to start off with, first of all, if you would like a cool and easy microphone, you can certainly do something like a desktop microphone. You can see I have a desktop microphone that I use when I'm doing all of my virtual programs and presentations from my desk. When I am out in the field and I'm off doing videos, I use this little guy right here. Now, I have to be completely and utterly transparent. I invented this. So I mentioned I was an inventor. This is called Hey Mic. And Hey Mic is a Bluetooth microphone that connects to your phone and allows you to get great audio on your videos up to 65 feet away. So there's a link if you're interested in getting a Bluetooth microphone that works with your phone and your computer. That's Hey Mic. Here's a link on the right-hand side to Zoom. So if you don't already have a Zoom license, please feel free to use this QR code or the link to go and get Zoom. In the bottom left-hand corner is a very fun app called Marco Polo. This is really going to be for anybody who's not 100% comfortable being on video. Marco Polo is a video, it's like a video walkie-talkie app. So it's available on Android and available on iPhone. And what you can do is you basically can record little video messages and then send them to somebody else. They record you a video message reply. And it's a pretty cool little tool. I've put a QR code and a link down here. If you want to connect with me on Marco Polo, I love helping people practice getting themselves on video. So by all means, join me on Marco Polo, drop me a message, and I will reply. And then finally, over to the right, this is just one of my favorite tools that I use in selling, and that is called Dub. And Dub is a video email marketing tool. So it is through Dub that I can record quick video messages and send them an email. But the best part about Dub is that it's not just sending an email. I get analytics and confirmation when people view my messages, and I can tell you exactly how long they viewed it for. So that helps me to make sure that I'm crafting really compelling messages. It also does some pretty cool things, like when I send an email that has a video message in it, it has a little animated GIF on that email, and people are desperate to click on it and find out what's happening behind the animation. So that's a pretty cool little tool that you can leverage. All right, so coming along, there's our recap. We've talked a little bit about why to Zoom. I've given you a few tips on how to Zoom effectively and some of the buttons that you should click on. If you have questions about Zoom that I have not answered, please, please, please take a moment, put them into the Zoom chat, and I will be reviewing all of those questions, and I will record a follow-up video to make sure that you get all the information that you need. Now, don't forget, you're going to have a chance in a second to come back and talk about, to get access to all the bonus content. So take a moment, and if there's things that we haven't covered, go ahead and start putting those in the chat, and I will be reviewing all of those and providing additional content. So what's your plan? I would love for you to take a moment. Are all of those items through you or where? Those were all links to different websites on all those tools. So again, you can get a copy of the slides and all the tools and everything. I have like a resource page that I can share with you. Just fill out the bonus content request and I'll make sure that you get that. So what's your plan? Everybody take a minute. What is your plan in order to take better advantage of Zoom? Which one thing that we've covered today are you going to leverage? Now, remember, if you want to share your screen when you're on Zoom, Valerie, all you need to do is down at the bottom is a share button when you're in a meeting. And when you click on that share button, that little up arrow to the right, you'll get to choose exactly which item you're sharing. So you could share just your PowerPoint presentation, or you could share just the PDF, or you could share your entire desktop. I never encourage sharing your desktop because we all have all kinds of notifications that are popping up all the time. So that's something to think about. We've got photos of the QR codes, but we don't remember how to use them. So remember, QR code, if you have an iPhone, is just open up your camera on your iPhone and just use the camera and point it at the QR code, and then it will pop up on your screen. You don't have to take a picture of it. You just point it at the QR code. And if you have an Android, you can go get a QR code reader, or you can just type in the link that I put underneath each QR code. Perfect. How do you give a walking tour of a house on Zoom? So let's kind of start talking about some of the questions. So with Zoom, you can actually use your phone or even your laptop or a tablet to record as you're walking around a property. And you can use something like, and the best Zoom tours I've seen are actually where you're going room to room, but what you're really doing is you're putting your camera or your phone on a tripod so that you can then walk around a particular section of the house, still using great audio and giving people an explanation of what they're seeing in the property, showing off some of the best features. The other thing that you can do is you can use a selfie stick. I know everybody cringes a little bit at the prospect of a selfie stick, but they're really great. And you can also use some really cool technology like a stabilizer or a gimbal, which is where you have your phone attached to a device. I actually have one, but don't have it out right now. You can attach your phone to the device, and as you walk around, it keeps your phone level so that you're not constantly kind of, juddering around or getting a kind of a messy experience. So that's one thing that you can do. You can also bring a friend. That's another way to do a great, easy tour, is to have your friend come along with a gimbal and follow you around the property and give some different angles and things like that. The benefit of Zoom, of course, is that it can record. But again, if we're doing a Zoom tour, we can have other people on the call with us. So we can even do a virtual open house. I know somebody mentioned earlier that they had done that already. So imagine being able to do a virtual open house where you have somebody who you're giving a tour, and then you go back and you give another tour and another one, and they never even had to leave the comfort of their own existing home, or maybe they don't even live in the area. And so what a great way to be able to get people into properties very quickly, very early in the sale process without them having to change their schedule. There we go. And there we go. Oh yeah, video email is great for people that sell a lot of land and larger equestrian properties. That's brilliant. Very good point, Pam. I appreciate that. Let's see what other questions we have here. If you're using your phone to video, do you take a mic, like a Bluetooth device, to do audio, or do you use an existing audio on your iPhone? I pretty much never record with standard iPhone audio if I can help it when I'm out and about. Now, it's probably okay if you're in a quiet, vacant house. But I want you to imagine for a second that in a vacant house, and I'm sure you've experienced this, you go in and there's no furniture, maybe there's not any rugs on the floor. It basically sounds like you're talking in a bathroom, right? You get terrible echo, and that experience doesn't feel very homey. Remember, you are selling with video. So how do you create the most powerful kind of sales experience as part of that? You want to give immense quality as much as you can, and audio is an important part of that. So yes, I would absolutely, of course I use Hey Mike because I created it, but you can use a Bluetooth microphone. You could also even use a wired microphone. You can use any of those things, but do make sure that you're giving the best possible audio. That's also going to help to minimize background noise. Let's be honest, if you had a house that was close to, say, a highway or something like that, the last thing you would want is to be recording a video and having cars that people could hear inside the house going past, or hearing the dog barking next door. So really think about the experience that you're creating with that video. Okay, so those are some of the questions. All right, now we're ready for the bonus content. Here it is. You've been waiting for it. Again, you can scan this QR code, or you can just type this link at the bottom. Now in here, there's a list of different kinds of bonus content that you can get. For example, one of the things that I do with my Zoom meeting space is that you can go to juliezoom.com. I actually have a custom domain that drives everybody into my personal office space. And don't worry, I have a waiting room, so nobody can go sneaking into my meetings. But by doing that, it means that I have a much friendlier and more professional way to share that experience with others. So one of the things that you can choose to get as part of the bonus content is the instructions on how to set that up if you would like. So there's all kinds of bonus content that you can choose from. I do ask you a few feedback questions along the way as well, because that always helps me. And just like you, my business is built on referrals as well. So again, to use the QR code, take your phone, if you have an iPhone, open up your camera app on your iPhone and just point it at the screen. You'll see a little dialog box pop up at the top. Click on that and it will take you to a form that you fill out. If you're on Android and you don't have a QR code reader already, you should go get one from the Google Play Store. And barring that, you can just type in julieholmes.vip/NSDCAR into your web browser, and it will take you there as well. And by the way, we can also talk about how you make your own custom domain links. But that's another topic for another day. So please, here are all of the bonus content here that you can pick from. Okay, question is, where are these QR codes going on my phone, and how do I find the link again? No problem. You can just jot down the link if you want to. Just write it down really quick. And we'll make sure that we follow up with this link as well. So the QR code, when you point your phone at the QR code, it's going to pop up a little box right at the top of your phone screen, and you're just going to tap on that and it's going to launch a web page for you. QR codes are just shortcuts to places. So they take you to a shortcut to a property listing, or they might take you to a shortcut to somebody's website, or to download their contact information, or to an app. In this case, I'm directing you to a form. So that's how QR codes are right now. So, Kelly, if you still have a question, drop me a link or drop me a question here in the dialogue, and I want to make sure that I get that answered. Ladies and gentlemen, it has been a massive pleasure to speak to you today during our virtual program, and I am so excited that you invested all this time with me, and I hope that you found it valuable and useful. Now, if you have any other questions, I'm going to leave the meeting up for just a second. Go ahead and type those into the chat box. Remember to go off and do the bonus content fill out, including getting the slides, and it would be my pleasure to send them to you. Ladies and gentlemen, I wish you all the very best during some very difficult times, and I encourage you to use this time to make your business foolproof going forward. And I love what a good friend of mine said, that we are not in quarantine right now, we are cocooning. So how are you growing your business while you're in this little cocoon? I wish you all the very, very best. Have a wonderful day.